As we have already completed the periods of English literature pertain to British literature, we are going to start from today onwards the American English literature. English literature which is composed or written or prepared or done in the land of America. Now the American literature is divided into these many parts. This is the full-fledged American literature. Puritan and colonial literature from 1472 to 1775. It is like 15th century, 16th century, 17th century literature or 18th century literature. Then we have to go with revolutionary and early national literature from 1775 to 1830. So this is the place, or this is the part where the 19th century American English literature is part. And then we have come to exactly 19th century Romanticism, like in England with Romantic literature after completion of the publication of lyrical ballads in the year 1798, or after completion of the French Revolution in 1789. The French Revolution and the publication of lyrical ballads also affected the American literature, American English literature in particular. Then we have to study the 19th century realism and naturalism from 1865 to 1914. So 1830 to 1865 is about 19th century American English literature, and 19th century realism and naturalism is part of the 19th and 20th century American literature, and especially we will concentrate on the 20th century literature. So our primary focus will be on the 19th century Romanticism, 19th century realism and naturalism, and 20th century literature. But it should not be begin in such a way so that straight away if I start this 19th century Romanticism, you may get little confused. So that is the reason why we are going to study the history of American literature, how the American English literature has evolved into the present state. So let us have a background information about the American literature history. Now, like we studied the British English literature's history, we are also going to study the American English literature's history. The history of American literature begins with the arrival of English-speaking Europeans in what would become the United States. So these people from land of England, when there was clash between the Protestants and Catholics, the Protestants moved from the England to this Newfoundland or to this country, and it is called America, and later it is recognized as United States of America. So the English people, Europeans from different parts of England, different parts of the European, they have moved to the United States. What is the reason for moving? Because of the clashes between the Catholics and Protestants. At first,
Sir, can you explain the difference between Catholics and Protestants?
Catholics are the worshipper of Mother Mary. Their head was the Pope of Rome. Protestants, they believe in Jesus Christ and they follow the Jesus Christ. In Christianity, there are three are there: Father, Son and Holy Spirit. Father, Son and Holy Spirit. In Catholicism or Catholic belief system, they believe that Mother Mary is the most important, and the Rome Pope, whoever is the Pope, is their head of the Catholicism. So Catholics and Protestants, these are the two different sects in the same religion, which is Christianity.
That means Catholic respect their Pope and Protestant respect the Jesus Christ.
Protestants follow the Jesus Christ. Protestants believe that Jesus Christ has come to this world to eradicate or erase the sins committed by the human beings. Whereas Catholics, they believe in the traditional manner of Mother Mary.
Okay, sir.
Right. Mother is more important than the son for them.
Okay.
At first, American literature was naturally a colonial literature. So, America was also a colony of the British. So, whatever they had written in the initial stages, it is also naturally colonial literature by authors who were Englishmen and who thought and wrote as such. So those people who have migrated from England or from English speaking world into America, they naturally had written that American literature influenced by the English literature. So who were those people? John Smith, a soldier of fortune, is credited with the initiating American literature. His chief books included A True Relation of Virginia and the General History of Virginia, New England and the Summer Isles. Although these volumes often glorified their author, they were avidly written to explain colonizing opportunities to Englishmen. So the theme of these books are written by John Smith is they explained how greatly the English people or the England can colonize the remaining part of this world. In time, each colony was similarly described. Then Daniel Denton's brief description of New York 1670, William Penn's brief account of the province of Pennsylvania 1682, and Thomas Ashe's Carolina 1682 were only a few of many works praising America as land of economic promise. Questions will not come from this information. It is just to make you to understand in a systematic manner about the American literature. So don't worry about this information. Then after American Revolution, as French Revolution influenced, the same way America also got influenced by the French Revolution. Not only America, Russia also got influenced, India also got influenced. So after the American Revolution and increasingly after the World War of 1812, American writers were exhorted to produce a literature that was truly native. That means after the people of America who started writing about their life, their land, then only the true American literature evolved. As if in response, 4 authors of very respectable stature appeared. So there are 4 people who become very great in American literature. William Cullen Bryant, Washington Irving, James Fenimore Cooper, and Edgar Allan Poe initiated a great half century of literary development. So these 4 were the very important writers in this age. William Cullen Bryant, Washington Irving, James Fenimore Cooper, and Edgar Allan Poe. Now we have to remember the most important examination point of view. Hawthorne, Melville, and Whitman. History also figured in tales of romance of Nathaniel Hawthorne. The simple question they will give you, Nathaniel Hawthorne belongs to which country? They will give you England, Germany, France, and America. The basic question is, answer is America. History also figured in tales of romance and Nathaniel Hawthorne, the leading New England fictionist of period. Many tales and longer works, for example, his masterpiece, The Scarlet Letter. This is important. Who is the author of Scarlet Letter is Nathaniel Hawthorne, which was published in 1850, were set against a background of colonial America with emphasis upon its distance in time from 19th century New England. So the connections between the England and the America was slowly started drifting away, and this writer Nathaniel Hawthorne had written the Scarlet Letter set against the background of colonial America with emphasis on its distance its time in 19th century New England. Others such as The House of Seven Gables, I am underlining, The House of the Seven Gables 1851 publication dealt with the past as well as the present. Still others such as The Marble Faun were set in distant countries. Remote though they were at times from what Hawthorne called the light of common day, they showed deep psychological insight and probed into complex ethical problems. So these were the initial writers who started writing or who wanted to produce the authentic original American literature. So those were Hawthorne, Melville, and Whitman. Then another great American fiction writer for a time, a neighbor and associate of Hawthorne, were Herman Melville. After relatively little schooling, Melville went to sea. A whaling ship, as he put it, was his Yale College and his hard work. His first books were fiction in the guise of factual writing based upon the experience as a sailor. Typee, published in 1846, and O.M.O.O. published in 1847. So were such later works as Redburn and White Jacket, 1850. Between 1846 to 1851, however, Melville's reading in philosophy and literary classics as well as Hawthorne's allegorical and symbolic writing gave him a new interest and aims. The first sign of the interest was Mardi, M-A-R-D-I, published in 1849, an uneven and disjointed transitional book that used allegory after the model of Rabelais to comment upon ideas afloat in the period about nations, politics, institutions, literature, and religion, which is emerging in the American land. The new techniques came to fruition in Moby Dick, very important novel, Moby Dick or the Whale, 1851, a richly symbolic work, complex but brilliantly integrated. Only in short stories, Benito Cerno, a masterpiece of its genre, and others in the psychological novel Pirre, Piere, 1852, and in the novelette Billy Budd, written in 1890, was Melville later to show sporadic flashes of the genius that created Moby Dick. The important question in this entire information is Moby Dick is an American literature and it is written by Herman Melville. Two writers of the old age we discussed, one is Hawthorne, second one is Melville. Then we have an ardent singer of the praise of Manhattan, Walt Whitman. See, the basic question I'll give you, they'll give you four writers and they will tell you who is not the writer of American literature, who doesn't belong to the American literature. They'll give you questions like this. Option A, Hawthorne, option B, Melville, option C, Whitman, option 4, they'll give you Shakespeare. Who is the not American literature writer, Goji?
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. That is a basic level question. Then, an ardent singer of the praise of Manhattan, Walt Whitman saw less of the dark side of the life than Melville did. He was a believer in Jacksonian democracy and in the splendor of the common man. Inspired by the romantic concept of a poet as a prophet and also by the transcendental philosophy of Emerson, Whitman in 1855 published the first edition of Leaves of Grass. Remember this one, Leaves of Grass is the publication of Walt Whitman, authored by Walt Whitman. As years passed, 9 revised and expanded editions of this work were published. This autobiography in verse was intended to show the ideas, beliefs, emotions and experience of the common man in a great period of American individualism. Whitman had a hard time winning a following because he was frank and unconventional in his transcendental thinking, because he used free verse rather than rhymed or regularly metered verse, and because his poems were not conventionally organized. Nevertheless, he steadily gained the approval of critics and in time came to be recognized as one of the greatest poets of America. So, 3 people we discussed who are from the old American English literature, Hawthorne, and his greatest contribution to the American English literature is the Scarlet Letter, and then Melville's is Moby Dick, and Walt Whitman is Leaves of Grass. Now, we will come to this part. Puritan and colonial literature is not part of your syllabus. Revolutionary and early national literature is something part of your literature, but 19th century romanticism, 19th century realism and naturalism are part of your literature syllabus, and 20th century English literature, American English literature is definitely part. So, we will discuss these 3 areas only. Now, features of American literature. I am taking just from the 19th and 20th century American literature features. Early on, American literature was characterized by its self-conscious effort to break away from literary forms established in Great Britain and other European countries. It's natural. In the beginning, they practiced what was being practiced by the English-speaking world, or especially the England. So they followed the writers of England, and their understanding about the literature they have drawn from the English speaking world only. But slowly when they understood their own land, their own culture, their own values, they also started producing their own American original literature. So it took some time. American authors such as John Neal were inspired to create their own literary style emphasizing the realities of American life, including the use of colloquial language and unmistakably American settings. So they wanted to produce their own literature with their own way of language, with their own traditions, values and all those things. That's why there is a difference between American English and British English. A sense of individualism and celebration of individual experience is one of the central features of American literature. So what is the most important feature of American literature is, it is about the celebration of a sense of individualism and celebration of individual experience is one of the central features of American literature. If you take any book of 19th and 20th century, the primary focus will be on the individual. Individual is most important in the American land or in the American literature or in the American ideology only. Individual has been given more priority than the country. Country is next, individual is important in the land of America. That's why they enjoy the liberty, they enjoy the freedom of being an individual. When it comes to India, other countries like India, for us country is important, other country comes first and then the individual. So we don't worry about the individual's problems, sufferings, miseries. Country is important. We all believe that if country is safe, if we keep the country safe, individuals will also remain safe. But for Americans, the individual is important, the country is next. American literature can also be characterized by its many forms of regional literature. These include Native American literature, African American literature, Chicano literature, and the literature of various dispersed. That means, like India, we have so many different states with different cultures. Even in America also, you must be knowing that America has no history. The land of America has no history because people who went there, who occupied the country, they actually brought their own history. But America has no history. That is also one of the reasons why the rapid development of the country. Because I'm not just contradicting, I'm not degrading India or any country. What we say, we always follow the roots. We'll say that we have Vedas, we have Puranas, we have to follow the traditions, all those things. And we will believe that whatever was told to us 4,000 years back, 5,000 years back was true, and we still believe and we'll still follow. But the land of America is very new country and they don't have any past. They don't have any kind of historical or past. So what do? Whatever they do, that is future for them. That is one of the reasons why America is developing or developed into a superpower within a short span of time. So there is different literatures will be there, like Native American English literature is there. The people who have come from, migrated from Africa, they also produce literature that is called African American literature, Chicano literature, and the literature of various diasporas. Then who are the important poets? Important poets. Basic questions comes is, they will give you 4 options and they will tell you who is not an American poet. Okay. So the important poets of the American English literature are, we already discussed Walt Whitman. Poets are Walt Whitman. Then we have Emily Dickinson, T.S. Eliot, Maya Angelou, and these are the 4 important poets of the American literature. And then dramatists, it is a new literature, 19th and 20th century, so we need not to worry about as like British literature. There are few set of people who are important examination point of view. So we are important dramatists from American literature are Eugene O'Neill, pronunciation may be a little different, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, and Edward Albee. The basic question comes is, who is not a dramatist? And they will give you Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, and T.S. Eliot. Who is not an essay dramatist? Venkateshwar sir? Venkateshwar sir?
Maya Angelou is the dramatist, sir.
4 options I am giving you.
Sir.
Who is not a dramatist? 3 options. First one, Williams, Arthur Miller, Edward Albee, and T.S. Eliot.
T.S. Eliot.
Right. So likewise, basic questions only they will give you. And novelists from American English literature are Nathaniel Hawthorne, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Zora Neale Hurston, William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, John Steinbeck, James Baldwin, Harper Lee, Toni Morrison. These were the novelists and these were the dramatists and the poets. And we have very famous and very popular essayists of the American literature. Who are those essayists? Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr. These were the essayists who had participated, who made the land of America into rich. So these were the important poets of American literature, these were the important novelists from American literature, and these were the essayists. So your primary focus must be on these writers or poets and novelists and essayists. Now what are the important books we have to read? Goji, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So as like British English literature, it is also confusing if you don't understand what to read, whose writings to read. So there are few selected books which are in examination point of view very important. Other than these books also you can read. There is no objection. So the following are some examples of important books in American literature. As I told you, Moby Dick by Herman Melville, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, Native Son by Richard Wright, Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut, and Beloved by Toni Morrison. These were the important books to be covered in American literature. At least you should know who has written which book. Then the key takeaways from American literature. Early American literature was often non-fiction, focusing instead on history and describing the process of colonization. During the American Revolution and post-revolutionary period, the political essay was the dominant literary format. The 19th century saw the formation of styles specific to American literature. So only in the 19th century, the literature of American literature started exhibiting, showing, showcasing the land of America original. So that's why 19th century literature is important, our examination point of view. The novel rose in prominence and many important poets also become famous. In the middle of the 19th century, the dominant literary style shifted from romanticism to realism, like worshipping the nature. They have shifted directly, slowly to the realism. Whatever is happening around them, they started portraying those things in their writings. Many texts from the early 20th century American literature explore social commentary, critique and disillusionment themes. So as we discuss the theatre of absurd, the postmodern literature, the whole world got shocked to see or shocked by the destruction caused in the World War I and World War II. And America emerged as a supreme power or superpower after the world wars. But the society in which America also get disillusioned, and they started writing themes, taking themes of the disillusionment. That means before to the World War, before to the Victorian period, Victorian values, all those were telling that human is essentially good. So human nature is essentially good. So the greatest things can happen with the help of human. They glorify the human being in those literature. But when they saw this kind of destruction caused by human to this world, they were disillusioned. They came out of that kind of illusionary world or imagination, and they started portraying the exact nature of the human being. So the themes also related to the disillusionment. By the end of the 20th century, American literature had developed into highly diversified and varied body of work that we see today. So they stopped imitating the original writers of the England, and they started focusing on their particular values, culture, traditions, and their ideology. So individualism is most important in American literature. Angoji.
Disillusionment theme. If you once again explain that disillusionment theme.
Right. Hamlet, correct, Goji? Can you remember Hamlet?
Yes, sir.
Why Hamlet was so confused? Because he believed in so many values, Christian values. If he killed somebody when he was praying, that person would directly go to heaven. That was one of the reasons
Yes,
why
sir.
he couldn't kill Claudius, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the second
Yes, sir.
thing
To be or not to be.
and second thing is, when the father ghost told him who killed him, but he did not he was not ready to accept the information given by the ghost. He was not ready to believe or trust the ghost, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why? It was believed in those days that these evil spirits will try to influence people to commit mistakes, commit crimes, right?
Yes, yes.
Now come to this generation, come to your world and my world, or in our world in which we are living. Do you believe that if somebody is killed while praying, will go to heaven directly?
No.
And do you
No,
believe
sir.
do you believe in supernatural elements in this world?
No, sir.
I am telling openly, we are not afraid of demons, devils, ghosts, and all those things. We are scared about our fellow human beings in this world.
Yes, sir. I too, sir.
So disillusioned. These are the ideas.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And there is one more is there. Venkatesh sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's audible.
Like if you take your parents, my parents, they were highly religious and they were pious and they spent a lot of time in praying to God, believing in God, visiting holy places, thinking that everything will go right. If a problem comes, they fold their hands, they pray to God. But now most of us, we stop doing that. Even we do that, also we don't do it from 100% involvement. We just pray to God, just to pray to God only the sake. There is no other belief. Even if you how, if you are a if you are a religious person, still there will be always a doubt in the mind, what I am doing is really beneficial or wastage of my time. So all these
Yes.
people are disillusioned. You pray to whichever god you want to pray, or whomever god you want to pray, you pray to all the gods, Goji and Venkateshwar sir. Will you get a job?
No, no.
No, sir.
So we are in the disillusion
sir.
world.
It's luck.
Enough, or do you want me to explain more further? I have very good examples. Ghosh,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
shall I
Yes, sir.
explain
Yes, sir.
few more? Shall I give few more examples of disillusioned world?
Yes, yes, yes,
Huh.
yes, sir.
It's a plan.
10, 15, okay, let us take 30 years before, for a woman, Pati Parmeshwar hai. Understood? Goji,
Poti Paramastari, yes, sir.
Pati Parmeshwar, that means the husband is the direct descendant of God. So speaking against to husband is speaking against to God. Whoever has entered into the life of a woman, it is because of the blessings of the God. Now tell me, how many women believe in that?
No, nowadays, 90% does not believe in such theory.
Why?
Actually, now the situation is changed, the tradition is changed,
How it is changed?
they are ultra modern.
How it is changed? Because they are all disillusioned.
Yes, yes, yes. They are disillusioned. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So nowadays, women also don't think like the previous generation women. Men also don't think like previous generation men. So why we are changed in this? Why our mind is changed? Because of the circumstances in which we are living forced us to think in such a way.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So if I don't want to waste much time, I'll just quickly end. We can't think beyond the situations in which around we are living. Sorry, let me just I just got distracted by some message. It is very difficult for us to think beyond our conditions and the limitations in which we are living in this world. It is very difficult to think beyond what we can think, because our surroundings, our people around us, are the world in which we are living. We suppressed our thoughts into such a base level that few things only will come into our mind. We can't think like those people who thought in the romanticism or romantic period or Victorian period, because the pressure which is invisible, the pressure which is in the one which is invisible in nature, is actually suppressing us to the base level. You can't have high morals in this present world, because you also believe that if you are too honest, if you are truthful, and if you are sincere, you cannot survive in this world. What made you to believe in
yes,
such a way?
yes, yes,
What,
yes.
what
You are right. You are right.
What made, tell me, what made you to believe in such a way? Is this the world which animals, cat, dogs, rats, all those things made you to believe in such way, or your fellow human beings?
Sorry, sir. Wholly fellow human beings.
Huh.
They actually make me ravish. Means I always try to be strict, principled, honest. But the fellow human beings actually make me harsh, sir. Actually, I can't tolerate. Means in order to survive in this society, you have to be strict. Otherwise, they will give a bamboo to you, sir.
Shall I tell you the truth? To this
Yes, sir.
context, everybody thinks like
Yes,
you.
sir.
Everybody thinks like you. They think that if I am honest, I cannot survive in this world. That is the atmosphere created in this world. Okay, there may be hardly 1 or 2% people who are very honest, who are truthful. I too accept that exceptions will be always there, but like you, like me, 99% of the people in this present generation, they are thinking. Okay, so it is not practically possible for us to think beyond these limitations. Okay, Goji?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So Pati Parmeshwar ka days chala gaya, Goji. We have to be very careful nowadays. We don't find a person to survive also in this world.
Yes, sir. Right, sir.
Venkatesh sir,
Yes, sir.
shall we proceed?
Yes, sir. We could proceed.
So by the end of 20th century, American literature has developed into the highly diversified and varied body of work that we see today. Then important poet in American literature. Who is the most important poet in American literature is Walt Whitman. Today I will introduce one. Let me see how many I have prepared. Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, T.S. Eliot. These three writers I will introduce today in the class, and then in the next class I will take T.S. Eliot's Wasteland. That is a very big topic. I have to control myself not to unnecessarily explain too many things in the class. So let us not waste time. important poet in American literature is Walt Whitman. So who is the most important poet in American literature, Koji?
Walt Whitman.
Walt Whitman.
Walt Whitman, and he belongs to the 19th century American English literature. One of America's greatest poets, perhaps America's first democratic poet. So America's first democratic poet is Walt Whitman, and he is equal in stature or joins the rank of Dante, Shakespeare, Virgil and Homer in terms of artistry and exceptional skill in the written words. So he is almost all equal to these stalwarts in English literature, British English literature especially, Dante, Shakespeare, Virgil and Homer, and his name is Walt Whitman in American literature. Now what are the works he published? He published Leaves of Grass in 1855. The themes including friendship, nature, democracy and love. In one of the exams question papers, I have seen what is the theme which is not included in the Leaves of Grass published by Walt Whitman. So they have given something else, but these were the themes of these Leaves of Grass written by Walt Whitman. Friendship is the theme, nature is the theme, democracy is the theme and love is the theme. I suppose it was marriage given, that marriage option was wrong. Then he had written Pioneers, O Pioneers, A Noiseless Patient Spider, I Sing the Body Electric, I Saw in Lusania a live oak growing, Out of the Cradle Endlessly Rocking, Beat Drums, I Hear America Singing, When Lilcus Lost in the Dooryard Bloomed, O Captain, My Captain. It is a poem written by Walt Whitman addressing or praising Abraham Lincoln. This is important question in examination point of view. There are 2-3 types of questions comes. Who is the author or who is the poet composed O Captain, My Captain poem? It is Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman wrote this poem O Captain, My Captain addressed to whom? Abraham Lincoln. Who is the My Captain in the poem O Captain, My Captain? It is Abraham Lincoln. So all these kind of questions comes from this poem O Captain, My Captain. It is about Abraham Lincoln, praising Abraham Lincoln as a true leader, true captain of the newly independent America. Then he had written Song of Myself. They may not ask you in-depth question, at least who had written Song of Myself? It is Walt Whitman. Most famous poem by Whitman, Song of Myself, is a mesmerizing mixture of romanticism and realism. The poem, which was initially titled Poem of Walt Whitman, the initial title of this poem, Song of Myself, Poem of Walt Whitman, an American, also serves as a biography of Whitman. It caught the attention of public and critics alike when it was published and remains among the most acclaimed and influential poems written by an American. So in American literature, these are very important information. What is the name of the poem which is considered to be the greatest poem written by Walt Whitman is Song of Myself. And what is the earlier title of this poem, Song of Myself, is Poem of Walt Whitman, an American. Now, after Walt Whitman, we have Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is from 1830 to 1886, her life of that writer. Emily Dickinson lived an introverted life and most of her friendships were formed through correspondence. During her life, she was known as an eccentric and few people know of her immense talent. It was after her death that nearly 1800 poems came to light and she became one of the most famous poets of all time. Here are 10 interesting facts about the life of Emily Dickinson, also known as the Belle of Amherst. So Emily Dickinson is also known as Belle of Amherst and she is an introvert. Emily Dickinson. Now what are the poems written by Emily Dickinson are Success is Counted Sweetest, I Am Nobody, Who Are You, Hope is the Thing with Feathers, I Felt a Funeral in My Brain, There is a Certain Slant of Light, Wild Nights, published in 1861, This is My Letter to the Old, 1862, I Dwell in Possibility, 1862, I heard a fly buzz when I died, 1862. It was not death, for I stood up, 1862. Death is the most dominating theme in her poems. So Emily Dickinson is a writer of American literature who is equally famous as Walt Whitman. So two poets I introduced. Now let us go to one of the most important American poet. Without his or her, T.S. Eliot, whether male or female, Goji?
Male, sir.
Male. Okay. Without his introduction, without his writings, we cannot complete American literature. So who is this
Sir?
T.S. Goji?
Sir, these writers, modern literature, American literature, actually, you share the slide of the whole literature portion, means I didn't find actually American literature notes actually. Here you are presenting the slides, but I took there, but actually I didn't find the American literature, means Indian literatures are there, even Victorians are there, Romantic are there, but these portion, mean American literature, these slides are not there. I think you have not included there in the slide.
Can you come again? What is your question?
Sir, actually, you one day you send the slide of the full English literature notes. Actually, these are the slides that you are presenting right now. You told that these are all the slides are included in these notes actually. And in those slides that these American literature portions are not there. Means there is Victorian, Romantic, even moderns are there, but these American portions I am not finding out. Even the notes are in a jumbled way, means not in a chronological way, means it is also there.
Might be. I also have to check once again. Still, it is under the preparation. I am actually taking time to publish a book. Publish a book in the sense like the entire English syllabus for PGT English. I have to work on that and I have to arrange those things in a chronological order. Those material which I have given you, it's a kind of a reference material for your preparation, Goshi. Maybe I'll take some days to prepare the book in a systematic manner with the index and the topics, summary, page numbers, all those things. I'll take some time to prepare. Okay. I'm actually planning to complete all this writing work during next month, first and the second week, because we are going to get holidays, autumn break holidays, 10 days I'll get time. So in those 10 days, I'll try to complete this publication, means like preparation of the book in a systematic manner, not like these slides.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I didn't find. That's
maybe you may be correct. And you may be correct. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So shall we continue?
Hi, sir.
Right. Okay. So T.S. Eliot, full name Thomas Stearns Eliot. His name was also asked so many times. What is the full name of T.S. Eliot? Goji, am I audible? Sorry, Venkatesh sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible.
Alright. So T.S. Eliot full name is Thomas Stearns Eliot. Was born in St. Louis, Missouri in Midwestern America on 26 September 1888. He was a famous poet, playwright and critic. His father was Henry Ware Eliot, a successful businessman, and his mother Charlotte Sten was a social worker and poetry writer. From 1898 to 1905, Eliot attended Smith Academy, where his studies included Latin, Ancient Greek, French and Germany. Very rarely you will get a question, who is the American writer, who is the American writer who attended Smith Academy? So very rarely they may ask you a question, but at least the place of birth and the place where they got education also to be covered little. He began to write poetry when he was 14 years under the influence of Edward Fitzgerald Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. So he was greatly influenced by Fitzgerald Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. His first published poem, A Table for Feasters, was written as a school exercise and was published in Smith Academy record in February 1905. He was awarded a scholarship to Merton College, Oxford in 1914. On 29th June 1927, Eliot converted to Anglicanism from Unitarianism, and in November that year he took British citizenship. Actually, he moved to Britain in 1914 when he was 25 but got citizenship in 1927. T.S. Eliot is an American, but he moved to Britain in 1914, but he is considered as an American poet or American writer only. When he got British literary citizenship, with the outbreak of First World War, he went to England and continued his studies at Oxford. Eliot was a very shy introvert. That's why he joined boxing classes. He completed his doctoral thesis on the philosophy of A.H. Bradley from from the University of Harvard but did not take a degree from Harvard. In 1914, he met Ezra Pound, very important person in the life of T.S. Eliot. He met Ezra Pound, who became his literary mentor. Who is the literary mentor of T.S. Eliot? It is Ezra Pound. She got his poems published and aided him in receiving critical acclaim. Eliot's first major poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, was published at Pound's insistence in Poetry, a magazine of verse after Pound persuaded the magazine editor Harriet Monroe. The poem The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. The poem was published in 1917 in his collection of poetry, Prufrock and Others Abbreviations. Eliot married Vivienne Higwood, an English girl, and settled in London in 1915. So, who is a writer from America settled in England? It is T.S. Eliot. From 1917 to 1919, he worked as a literary editor of The Egoist. It was a feminist magazine. So, who is the editor of Egoist magazine during 1917 to 1919 it is T.S. Eliot. And what is this Egoist magazine? It is about the women's magazine or feminist magazine. In 1923, he became the editor of the Criterion. He was also founder of this journal. And in 1925, he became the director of the British Order of Merit and the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1948. He is the American writer who received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1948. In 1947, his wife expired or died. In 1957, he married his private secretary, Miss Weller Fisher, and remained married until his death on 4th January 1965. So this is the important information about T.S. Eliot and Emily Dickinson and Walt Whitman. So in this today's class, I have just introduced you the American literature's history, the background of American literature, the different periods in American literature, and who are the important writers in the old American English literature, Hawthorne, Melville and Whitman. And Nathaniel Hawthorne's important work of art is the Scarlet Letter, published in 1850. And what is the theme of this work? Set against a background of colonial America with emphasis upon its distance in time from 19th century New England. And then one more publication was The House of the Seven Gables, dealt with the past as well as the present of land of America. And then we have one more important writer is Herman Melville, and is one of the greatest contributions to American English literature is Moby Dick or The Whale, published in 1851. And then the next writer is Walt Whitman, poet. Leaves of Grass is the greatest contribution. And we have four different periods in American literature. What is Puritan and colonial literature, the early stages of literature, revolutionary and early national literature, like when the America went against the Britain, what type of literature produced, that is part of the revolution and early national literature. And then we have primarily focusing on the 19th century romanticism and 19th century realism and naturalism and 20th century literature. So these three are that means the syllabus, the portion of American literature is very minimal, not like British English literature, only three areas, and in those three areas important writers, important works of art and major works we have to cover. Then we discuss the features of American literature. The most important feature of American literature is it has a sense of individualism, and celebration of the individual experience is one of the central features of American literature. Individual is more important than country to the Americans. And then who are the most important writers, poets, dramatists and essayists and novelists of the American literature are Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, T.S. Eliot, Maya Angelou. We have completed the introduction of Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, T.S. Eliot in this particular class. And then dramatists are Eugene O'Neill, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, Edward Albee. And novelists are Nathaniel Hawthorne, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Zora Neale Hurston, William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, John Steinbeck, James Baldwin, Harper Lee, Toni Morrison. And essayists are Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. And what are the important books in examination point of view? Important are Moby Dick by Herman Melville, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, Native Son by Richard Wright, Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut, and Beloved by Toni Morrison. Then what are the most important key features are take key takeaways by the American literature is they are shifted from the romanticism to realism, and in the most part of the American 20th century American literature explores social commentary, critique and disillusionment. Themes are part of the American literature of the 20th century. Then we discussed that one of the important, the greatest American poet is Walt Whitman, and his works like Leaves of Grass, then his other poems, and then we discussed Emily Dickinson's introduction and her important poems, and then T.S. Eliot introduction completed. So in the coming class, in the next class, I am going to start important works of art published by these American writers, and in the next class I am going to start T.S. Eliot's Wasteland. Okay, so this is from my side. If you have any questions, you can ask me.